Without further ado, the next topic is on DevOps. It gives me great pride and privilege to introduce Vice President of Product Management, Mr. Michael Maggio.
Thank you. Thanks, Stefan. Well, exciting. Good afternoon. Let's see if we get the slide up there. There we go. I hope everybody's enjoying CA World so far this afternoon, this morning. It's been a pretty exciting time already. And we've got some great news I want to share with you today around application development and some new things we're doing at CA. As you guys probably know, as long-term customers at CA, we've been a very strong systems management company. But as you heard Mike Gregoire talk this morning and Mike Madden talk afterwards, it really is about the application economy. And how can you talk about being in the application economy if you don't talk about building those applications? And so we're going to do in the next half hour is go over effectively our application development business line, a brand new grouping, if you will, of products you've probably known and loved over the years and some new technology that we announced today, and give you a demonstration of that. See if we get, there we go. And the first thing to talk about really is what do you think about from application development in the mainframe pavilion? It's an interesting idea. But if you think about it, every time that you take out your iPhone or your Android and you actually check your flights or you book a reservation or you check into your hotel, more often than not, that transaction is not happening on your device. It's going back into the infrastructure and happening on a mainframe or a system of record somewhere. And it's amazing how many people don't realize that they are actually using mainframe systems just by using their iPhone. And that's really what we're going to talk about today and discuss how CA can help you, if you're building applications, get to that point where you're actually rapidly developing iPhone apps, Android apps that are actually talking to your back-end system of record. So start talking about sort of a definition of what application development is in the mainframe world. I think for over years we've think about application development in terms of writing applications for the mainframe. And when you think about writing applications for the mainframe, you say, well, nobody does that anymore, and you're probably right. Very few people are actually creating new applications running there. What they are doing is building applications that are leveraging the data, the logic, the back-end aspect of your mainframe. And if you look at that market today, while the specifically writing programs that run on a mainframe is legacy and declining, writing applications that deal with the real world is rapidly growing. And in fact, that's the biggest challenge that our customers have today. That's the biggest challenge I imagine you guys have, which is how do we bring those pertinent iPhone, Android, web-based applications out to the market while still talking to our back-end systems that are basically been running for years, and we need to get that information without getting in any kind of trouble. So the new market for application development in the context of what we're delivering is really dealing with building solutions, continuous delivery applications that allow you to get your products out fast while you're integrating with the system of record. And Stefan introduced this as a DevOps session. It's an application development session that really focuses on some of the challenges around DevOps. I know it's a buzzword like cloud, but DevOps is actually critical. Again, you heard Mike speak about this morning. We really think about why DevOps has become a big issue these days. You think about it, that's been around for a long time. Engineers throwing that code over the wall for the operations guy to get it out the door, and everybody yelling, it's not out this year, it's going to be out next year, and now it's not out today, it's going to be out tomorrow. But the challenge when you talk about mainframe-based application talking to front-end tools is you've got a world where I've been used to doing releases once every year, once every 2 years, talking to a world where I'm doing application development that has to go out on an hourly basis or a daily basis or a weekly basis. Those two worlds are colliding now, and how do they come together in a way that allows us as big corporations to enable our developers to be innovative, to actually get products out the door while that happens?
We have two challenges with application development. First one is the mobile and web, where the data is needed right away, and there's no time to wait. It's not like the old days when you could generate a report and have it out the next day. And the other problem is that a lot of the people coming on are familiar with Java and things like that, but they've really not had any exposure to the mainframe. So people like me have to make sure that they know how to test on the mainframe, how to write programs that run on the mainframe. But the fact that people don't know the mainframe is a major problem.
We picked Don on purpose, asked him to give us some feedback. Don has been a great customer of ours for years. And Don's your prototypical mainframe application developer, a systems programmer. And as you can tell, even Don realizes that the way that we're going to survive in this economy is I've got to get the newer generation of people that are coming in and building these applications to come in and get them working for us as fast as possible and still deal with the back-end systems and not have to go to the system programmer or to the mainframe experts and get it working for them. It just is no time for that. If you think about that progression, it's really a progression from what used to be sort of a full-service shop to a self-service shop. I use an example here of a hotel, and actually, if you go see our exhibit booths later on and our demonstrations that are around the floor here, you'll see we're using an application that we built that actually represents a typical sort of mainframe to mobile application. In the old days of hotels, you would actually go in, you were the cleavers, and actually sign a piece of paper, and that's how you check into the hotel. So technology evolved quite a ways, and actually we were able to actually put that system on a mainframe and actually allow the teller to log you in as you came in and checked in, and they'd look you up, and they say, okay, fine, you're registered. And then we wanted to save money, so we moved it over to a distributed platform, either on Windows or on Unix. But now we've changed the world again, and except for the hotels here at Las Vegas, you can usually walk into a hotel and check in on your mobile device. There's still challenges here, I think, with Vegas hotels. But the nice thing about a mobile check-in is that it's all self-service. The challenge, of course, is that all that information in that middle tier is still out there. How do I check into? How do I register as a guest? How do I actually get my hotel room? And so that migration from sort of the old world to the new world is really what we have to address. So in the old days, that application was probably written on a mainframe, usually using a traditional language like a COBOL or a PL1 or an assembler. You had your back-end database, whether it was an IDMS or a Datacom or a DB2, and you basically dealt with batch processing to get your jobs done and get your list of registered guests on a daily basis. That was fine, and that worked for a long time, very full service. Of course, that changed over the years. For economic reasons, for computing processing reasons, I could now take that application, I could move it into a series of Linux servers or Windows servers and make that logic run on a front-end distributed environment. But all of my data and all my process still ran on the back-end system, so I had to wrap those services with some type of process to call them, and so I had a two-tier architecture going on. Well, the world changed again over the past 5 years or so, thanks to companies like Apple and Google and Android. Everything's being done on your handheld. So now the mobile developer wants to create that same experience for you by putting all that information on your mobile device. But they still need to go back and get that information out of the server farm, which still has to go back and talk to the mainframe. And so suddenly this simple process of either checking into a hotel or leaving a comment about your stay has become a complex multi-tier application that needs to be built. This is the world we're living in today. Which means we have to change the way we're developing our solutions. And so over the past year, we're really rolling it out today. We've been migrating our existing product lines that you guys have come to know and love and focus them more from point products really into a solution that actually allows you to solve that problem from mobile to mainframe. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with our software change management products, Endeavor and Harvest. And they are great products that actually focus on areas of development. So Endeavor basically owns the market in the space of software change management for the mainframe. Harvest is a phenomenally great product in the distributed world. There are a lot of other ones out there as well, like Git and Subversion and Proforce, but everyone's trying to solve that problem for distributed computing. On the mainframe side, we've had great products in our Intertest product and our FileMaster product to allow you to actually test and debug and to evaluate your data and your processes on the mainframe. And then to build a very long multi-tier application, we've had some very powerful model-based development products like Gen and Plex that allow you to create a model for how your application is going to run from the front to the back end and generate that code in a monolithic application that spans the enterprise. Great products, great solutions, but a challenge to address the entire problem from mobile to mainframe. So what we're trying to do is solve that for you, make your lives easier by bringing these together under a more holistic solution. The first thing we did is we're combining our software change management products so that you can manage your assets regardless of where they are. And so a new technology will be coming out next year called Unified Software Change Manager is going to have that effect of allowing you to run any SCM product under the hoods, but have a common look and feel, a common access to it for developers and administrators so they can manage their assets across the enterprise. You should go see that. It was actually being demonstrated at one of our demo stations out on the floor. We're also actually taking our software, our testing solutions, and making it easier to use on a mainframe. So combining UIs, combining servers, bringing it together under a single process so that I can actually do management of my applications and testing my applications and testing the data as well. So Intertest and FileMaster are being brought together for a common set of servers and a common install. And then finally, probably most importantly, we're taking the power of 4GLs, the ability to do model-based languages, and saying, if I can define my business logic for an entire application, why can't I take that same business logic and break it into individual services that I can expose to the outside world to build mobile apps? And so we've taken our products like Gen and Plex and the entire portfolio of solutions around 4GLs, and instead of generating code, we're actually now adding the ability to generate application services through our App Service Orchestrator. And the App Service Orchestrator integrates very nicely with the API Gateway product so that these services now get exposed to basically anyone doing mobile development. So you can see what we've done is we've taken a lot of our disparate products and brought them together and made them more building blocks for bringing that whole process from soup to nuts together. Still, unfortunately, they're separate products. And what we really need to do is take that process and bring it together. So if I'm in the beginning designing a product, want to write code for that, check out the right pieces of code, do a build, do a release, and see how it works in the field, I need to have that process integrated. And so one of the big announcements we made today is a brand new product, you heard Mike talk about it earlier, is our application Lifecycle Conductor. And basically what ALC does is it actually is an ALM product that brings the combination of all these tools together to manage your asset, regardless of where it started and where it is in the process. I'm going to give you a demonstration of ALC and how it brings together all those products, and talk about why this is critical to actually making sure we can do application development in the application economy. So let's think about app dev. We all know this lifecycle process. We come up with a great idea. I have a hotel application that runs on the mainframe. I want to allow it. It allows you to, for the clerk to type in comments about the guest stay. I want to change that and make that available to the consumer so that on their iPhone they can type their guest stay. So you design a feature, you write that code, you take that code and you build it. You build it, test it. Once it's tested, you're ready to release it. You send it out into the wild world. All of your users use it. Everybody's happy. You're getting comments galore, and everything's wonderful. Probably not the first time you get out the door. It's not going to work that way. What's nice, as I said, is that we give you tools to do that. So you could today sit down with a big organization. Let's go to a Marriott or a Hyatt and say, I want to build this new mobile application, and I've got a mainframe back end. Let me use Intertest and FileMaster to go test the bugs that are on there in the back end. Let me bring Jen out here and actually write a new application on the front end. Let me manage all my code in Endeavor and Harvest. The challenge is everybody's doing this separately in their own little box. And so as each person has another part of the process and they finish it, they have to go down the hall and tell them, I'm all done, I've checked in your code, you should go do the next thing now. Or they go to QA and say, ready to test it, go ahead and test it. And so you're waiting for people to do things. Nobody really knows what you did. You go to a release automation using RA, you want to go deploy it, and RA says, where are all the files? And you have to go tell them where all the files are. And so they're great tools in themselves, but they're all boxed out. What we really want is a process where this is all integrated from soup to nuts. And that's what ALC does. ALC says something like, oh, I know what the requirement is. I'm going to add, if I'm doing an agile process, a story to my backlog which says, let me create a new mobile feature that allows users to leave a comment on their iPhone that will go to the back-end database running on the mainframe. ALC says, I've got that, great. Let me go associate with the section of code that these people are going to work on. So we can go talk to the software change management product, say, go get this piece of code, go check it out for me. And it can send a message to the developer saying, you're ready to build. Go ahead and build it. Here's the code. Here's the requirement. Here's who's working on it. Here's what product management wants. The developer says, that's great. I've built my code. Let me go run it over into the testing world, make sure that it's actually working correctly on the mainframe. Let's launch FileMaster and check the records. Let's make sure that nothing's abended through a COBOL program in the back end through Intertest. And again, ALC keeping that communication is all coordinated from soup to nuts. When it's all done, it's built and it runs, I can go tell RA, go push this out, go make it work. And RA says, great, I pushed it out. Here are the people that were involved in the release. That's tied to these developers, tied to this design spec that was built over here. So now I can go and check with UIM or APM and say, how's it running in the wild? Is it running well? Great. Is it not running well? Let me go tell Service Desk, here's where the problem's going to be when you get a call. Go focus on these developers because they're the ones that wrote this part of the code. The concept of ALC is that I'm going to orchestrate or conduct that process across the entire lifecycle, from the design all the way down to the actual specification and release of the product. So let me walk you through that. I'm not going to tell you every step that's going on, but you'll see it happening live. Here's our application. This was the original mobile app, and there was one of the buttons called Facilities there, and so the developers decided I'm going to change that with leaving a comment at the hotel. So I got to replace that button, replace that functionality. By the way, remember, that functionality is running on the mainframe somewhere. So how do we do that? The first thing we do is that there's a story written in ideation that says you've got to go to effectively the code and go write a new component. And what happens is we go into ALC and use ALC's product management features to say, I'm going to create a new story on the backlog. I'm going to assign it to a set of developers. I'm going to go see what happens from here. I'm going to kick off this process. Now remember, this is all automated. And so you're going to go see the process of a developer typing in here, but as they go down the steps, ALC will figure out what to do next for the next process in the stage. You'll also notice in this demo that we're using a lot of features built into Application Lifecycle Conductor. Well, let's say that I actually have a PPM tool like Clarity or version 1. There are connectors in ALC that you can use your version 1, your Clarity, or whatever your open source system might be to grab your requirements and bring them into the system. So the idea, again, between ALC is it's conducting the processes regardless of what the tools are underneath. We'd love it to be all CA products, but we guess you're probably using other products as well. So if you're using Git, for example, for SCM, or if you're using Jenkins for continuous development, we're still going to integrate with that as well as integrate with things like RA and Harvest. So we've actually done that process. The next thing we need to do is tell the developer to go find this story and start working on it. Well, again, I don't have to get up from my desk and walk down the halls to product manager and say, get going, guys. ALC's already told you that it's there. They got an email. And the developer actually took that story and said, oh, I've got to go do something. Let me go see what I got to do. I've got a brand new story on my backlog. And you'll see that ALC actually uses a little bit of a nice flow chart here where it says, let's bring it into design, from design into development, development into test, and test into basically release. And so each stage of this process actually gets tracked by ALC. What's nice about that is that any time as a product manager or a developer or a QA person or a release engineer, I can go look and see where is the product right now, what stage is it in. The other thing you may have caught, there are some very customized boxes that were specific to this process, which was I'm going to build a product that includes a back-end mainframe that's going to be pushed into REST services. You can configure ALC to do whatever process you and your organization want to do. In this case, it was when I actually go and bring things out, I want to automatically create tests in my test management system. So automatically, from just moving one of these tasks from the left to the right, ALC said, I need to go generate tests for this component, and they will go take those tests and populate the third-party software testing product. In this case, we're using HP ALM, an example of one of our connections to an outside product. This is kind of nice. Now you have to worry about whether or not the developers wrote tests or not, because CA ALC will automatically bind those tests for the developer, saying, okay, these are the 4 or 5 tests that you have to do for this operation to actually go forward into the next stage. So as you watch this process, you're going to get that feel now, that flow from what happened with my design all the way to how I'm going to get this thing out the door. So we're at the next step, and we're ready to go ahead and write the code. And so writing the code, there is a built-in process in ALC that this hotel organization did that says our code writing means we go to Gen, we check out a model, and you'll see in this dialog there's a Gen model built into ALC. That's specific to this development organization. If you had Visual Studio, it might say Visual Studio Project there, and you say which project you're connected to. Again, think about ALC as integrating all the pieces of your development process together so that you can see what pieces work and which pieces don't work. In this case, the developer has to go ahead and author test cases in Gen and create the Gen components so they know what to do next, and that's going to be generating a standard SOAP object, and that SOAP object is then going to be turned into a RESTful object. So I won't get into the weeds of actually the details of what's being built here, but if you want to see this demo and ask questions about it, again, I encourage you to go see one of our pavilions out there. We have people in the exhibitor booths actually running this demo and showing you how it works. So process is just about done. The detail box down there is specific to the set of tools you've incorporated here. In this case, we actually need to know where is our API gateway they're going to publish this service to, what model did it come from Gen, and who's responsible for creating this and testing it and running it. And that's all tied into, again, this process defined by ALC. So you can imagine when you get ALC in-house, the first thing you want to do is sit down with your team and figure out what is your process. How do you define your methodology when you go from a design spec to a development spec to a testing spec to a build and a release? Everybody's will be different, and what's nice about ALC is it's completely customizable and integrated with whatever products that you're actually using inside your development operation. Anyone ever notice how the desert dries you out? So we're all set. We've written it in Gen. We need to do the next step. What happens now is that ALC automatically sends an email message, if you will, to the next product. In this case, it's the App Services Orchestrator. And it's basically saying, well, you need to create a service for me. because the gen guy's all done. Again, the gen guy doesn't have to get up or call and say, I'm ready to go. Automatically being notified by ALC, here's a mail client saying, you're ready to go, you're up next, it's your turn. And what's interesting is that, little example here is that ALC before you saw was an Eclipse-based UI, but this person's product is actually web-based. And so ALC actually comes in flavors of both web-based UIs and Eclipse-based UIs. And you're looking at the web-based version of ALC. Looks very similar to the Eclipse one, not different, except it's running in a browser now. And what we're doing here is the exact same information that the last developer filled and populated and built has been automatically passed on to the next developer to actually go and do their process. And they bring up App Services Orchestrator, which is going to go away really fast because I want you to all come back tomorrow for our presentation to show you how the App Services Orchestrator works. So I'm going to tease you on that one and not show you what happens. But a service was actually built. We have to go tell the mobile developer, go build the UI for that. So the mobile developer goes over and says, okay, fine, I'm ready to build it. I got the email saying everything's set. There's a service sitting in the API gateway for me. How do I go build that? I'll go check out all the code from all over the place. Well, again, do I use Git? Do I use Endeavor? Do I use Harvest? I don't use any of those. On top of it, I use a unified SCM. Here's a vision of USCM that basically allows you to say, I can see where all of the program assets are, regardless of what system they're actually sitting on. And I can select one of those packages and bring it into my workspace so I can work on that code. More importantly, I can see who else is working on it. So you'll see next to some of those items there are other people that have code checked out or they're reviewing it, et cetera. And if I want to inform them I'm going to work on it as well, I can send them an IM or an email saying, I'm going to actually look at this piece of code that's running on this Linux box, just so you know, because I'm actually writing a mobile front end and I have to make sure that the communication stuff is working correctly. So the idea behind unified SCM is really, I don't really care as a developer where those assets are. All I care about is I need them now. I need to bring them inside my workspace and work on them and develop the code. And so you go take care of that for me. And it will talk to the underlying systems that do that for you. So in this case, the developer is Michelle. You'll see their icon there. And Michelle is actually grabbing a whole bunch of pieces that they need to work on. They're all basically on the mobile front end, which is being written in Xcode on a Mac to build the iPhone interface. We're going to go drag those things over and say, okay, these are the ones I have checked out. This is what I'm going to work on. And they now have their service built for them. They have the code they're ready to do the development for. And now look, lo and behold, there's no mainframe developer anymore. Now I'm a straight out Xcode developer basically writing code in a traditional environment, something I'm familiar with. This may look crazy to all of you who've never written an app before in Xcode, but to the developer who's been writing iPhone apps all along, they get this. This is easy. I'm going to go create a new method that calls a comment request, and that comment request is just a RESTful service, and I could care less if that's actually coming from a mainframe. I don't even know it's coming from a mainframe. All I know is I have to build a standard iPhone app, but now I've tied from beginning to end the back-end databases, the back-end processes running on your mainframe, coming across the wire, making it available to the application developer who is building a traditional application the way they've always built their iPhone apps, whether it's for the 2 guys in a garage with a dog or for the 1,000 employee development operation that's running a major bank or a major hotel. So we're wrapping up here. I'm going to build to make sure that RESTful service is called correctly. When I make the build, it brings up a simulated version of my iPhone. I see that icon's now changed. It's a message. That worked fine. I have a new UI that calls the comment feature for when I'm sitting in the bar. This is a great place to have a drink. And when I publish that, I could then go back onto example file master and see if that record is sitting in the database in DB2, which was originally written by the hotel app on the mainframe. I won't show you that piece in the interest of time, but what I'll tell you is that the mobile app developer is now done. So they can mark their tasks as complete. And again, once things are complete, you see they move all the way to the far right in that nice green line of items that all have been fixed and finished for the project. And we're all done. It's complete. It moves on to the next change. And then what's left? What's really left is make sure I run the final tests. I might want to run them under CA service virtualization. I'll run them maybe with my HP testing product. I can see how well things have run, what defects are left, are there any issues. I can scroll down the taskbar to see what I have to do still to get this one feature done. And really it's just the code mobile changes have been completed. So once I write complete here, it'll move to the right of my taskbar. And from a developer's point of view, you've just seen an entire process from an application that was running and built on the back end on the mobile side that's now being built, on the mainframe side, now being built and running on the mobile side. You're also seeing, for example, integration between products. So when tests are run in, say, HP ALM, those test results are being brought back into ALC so I can see how those results work. And I don't need to leave ALC to see the output of other products and other tools. Oh, we lost the screen. I can see it. Trust me, it's exciting, guys. There we go. Let's see if we get past this. So finally, the last step of all this is really looking at the test case generation. Everything works correctly. The product manager's happy because they want to say that I can now accept this item because all of my developers did the things they were supposed to do. The testers did what they were supposed to do. Everything looks great. We're going to go ahead and get this thing ready for deployment. And then, of course, the last piece of testing changes is the thing I had to do as a product manager, so I'm going to mark that as complete, and now there's nothing left on my taskbar as I wrap up my development environment. Again, it's showing you a lot here, so clearly if you want to see what's going on, I'll, again, encourage you to go see that in one of our demonstration booths. Other things you can do in the product, and you kind of see as part of that, not only just follow the flow of the various tools, but you can annotate everything by leaving notes and messages, and they get passed along the food chain as well, so everybody can see what was done. You can look at things like your burn down charts, how well did this project succeed. You're going to see in this burn down chart that once the product manager has actually gone ahead and accepted it and finished that thing, those stories are completed now, and so you'll see the burn down chart go down and the success feature pop up. And so once you see the change, you'll notice on the graph on the left, the very last bar will actually pop up like it's accepted as you want to see it move in the right direction. And not only are you as a product manager happy and your boss happy because you're getting this thing out the door, everyone along the chain hasn't felt like they were been managed. They feel like they've just taken the next step in the process. And then at the very end, when it's all done in the field, why not go and make sure that we've got an entry in service desk to know this new release is out there, it's ready to go, so everybody calls in, you know exactly who was built it, when it was built, where it was built, what features were added, what features were fixed. Again, an integration directly with Service Desk into ALC allows you to either do this within ALC or do this within Service Desk, and you will see the ALC components pop up inside of Service Desk. So the last feature of ALC I want to talk about is we have plugins that plug into your favorite tool. So if you're in Service Desk or you're in a Visual Studio, or if you're in a Gen and you need to get information from ALC, there is a dialog or a plugin that will show up in your tool, like in this case it does in Service Desk. That is the aspect of, basically in this case, the ALM records that actually manage that process from beginning to end. The last step is we're just logging into the system, make sure that we're done, and you'll see that we've just followed that process around the entire circle. And you can imagine you just start this all over again for your next release, your next point. Now, it's even more fascinating, of course, when you have hundreds or thousands of developers working all at the same time, and this process is being managed for you. So think of the hours that you've spent in product management and development, waiting for someone to do something, waiting for the next tool, and figuring out how it gets from one stage to another. So now we're done. We see the final thing is that our comments field has been educated and we're all set.
Mainframe is still important. That's where all the data is stored. That's where all the programs run. We need to get stuff done quicker. We need to have programs turned over quicker. And without testing tools like CA supplies, there'd be no way we could get the stuff out on the schedule we need to.
One slide left, I think. Yeah. So what we just showed you here was a great demonstration of the product. I also want to talk about the fact that we really have launched a whole new versions of all of our products in the application business line. As you guys know, our familiar ones like FileMaster, Intertest, Genplex, Endeavor, and Harvest are still there today, revamped and rebuilt to build into the ALC process. And we have 3 new technologies that we're going to be rolling out over the coming year. Today we've rolled out ALC, which is available immediately. The App Services Orchestrator we expect to happen very soon. There are demos of it at the station over there. And our Unified Software Change Manager project we're hoping to get out by sometime next year. Very excited about all these technologies and hope this is exactly what it is you're trying to address the issues. So you want to do some polling questions? We'll skip the polling questions because we're running out of time. So if you guys want to answer these polling questions, tell me afterwards. I'd love to hear it. But with that, there's lots of other sessions going on here on the floor. Like I said, tomorrow we actually have an analyst from Gartner, Del Vecchio. He and I have commiserated a lot over the past couple of months on what we're trying to solve from an app dev point of view. He'll be a great person to listen to. You'll see him tomorrow morning. And then we have another presentation here in the booth to show you the Gen App Services Orchestrator integration as part of the ALC process. And there's a couple of off-floor presentations on Wednesday. A couple of my product managers will really talk about how we deal with quality in the ALC process with our tools like Intertest and FileMaster and how they integrate with our SCM products. And then finally, there are a number of off-floor presentations as well, both this afternoon, if you look at your calendar, and then tomorrow as well as presentations that we're doing in the DevOps theater as well. So with that, suggest you go visit our booths where our demonstrations are going on. Appreciate your time. We're very excited. We hope you're very excited about these things coming out here at CA. And thanks a lot for all of your time.